So there's a little bit of a change from last week. FFCRA, the paid leave provisions expired on December 31st, but we weren't sure what President-elect Biden was going to do about FFCRA. He's now proposing an extension, which is what we kind of thought he might do, but now he came out and said it last week. So just as a reminder, FFCRA has applied to private employers with less than 500 employees. It's allowed for 80 hours of paid sick leave for these 6 enumerated reasons. I won't go through them all because you've all heard them a million times before. And then an additional 10 weeks of partially paid leave time to care for children who don't have their normal care providers or don't have their normal schools open. And this is for employees who are unable to work or telework. So at the end of the year, Congress extended the tax credit, but they didn't extend the requirement of providing FFCRA leave. So in other words, it became voluntary. FFCRA provided the refundable tax credit, but it was not necessarily that you had to mandate the leave. So employers were making their decisions. Are we going to extend this or are we not going to extend this? So what interestingly happened last week is that in one of his speeches last week, President Biden came out and said, yeah, I'd like to expand this, and this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to cover all employers, okay? Still, there would be no more exemption or possible exemption for the really small employers, 50 or less, and it would even cover employers 500 or more. But only the tax credit would only go to the small organizations. The tax credit would still only go to under 500. Okay. He also wants to increase the amount of leave, 14 weeks of paid sick and family leave to help parents with additional caregiving responsibility when a child or a loved one's school or care center is closed, for people who have or caring for people with COVID symptoms or quarantining, and for people needing time off to get the vaccine, interestingly. Another something we've talked about, how do we make it as easy as possible for people to get the vaccine? Well, it may very well be that we are going to mandate now some paid time off to do that. And President-elect Biden also wants to offer more money, a maximum paid leave benefit of $1,400 a week. So we'll see what happens with this, but my guess is this is a priority within the first couple of weeks in office to see if this can go through. So stay tuned. And what this suggests to me is if you haven't been doing, or if you decided not to do voluntary FFCRA, maybe you want to reconsider that. I'm not sure how this is going to work, if they're going to just have it effective one day going forward, if they're going to try to somehow make it retroactive, which seems really crazy and really confusing to me. But stay tuned. And if you've already made one decision, just know that you might have to reconsider your decision. And then I want to revisit the vaccination question. I've said this before. Obviously, we know vaccines are out. Most of you probably know healthcare providers who have at least gotten their first dose of vaccination. I know some people have gotten their second dose already. We're moving hopefully now into the next phases here in southeastern Pennsylvania, where people who are older are going to be able to get the vaccine, and we're hoping that maybe more widely the rest of us will be able to get it late spring, early summer 2021. And the question that keeps coming up over and over again is, can you require the vaccine? So remember, again, limited availability. You can't require something that doesn't exist. But employers can establish legitimate health and safety requirements that are job-related and consistent with business necessity. So again, we've seen in the past, healthcare providers have mandated the flu vaccine. Healthcare providers will probably be in pretty good shape if they want to mandate the COVID vaccine. But what's your particular situation of your employer? Are all of your people still working from home? And has that been working for you? Then you probably don't have a really good health and safety reason to mandate the vaccine. On the other hand, are you dealing with the public on a regular basis? That might change the equation a little bit. And always keep in mind that we're going to allow for reasonable accommodation on the basis of disability and religion. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We've talked about the carrot and stick approach. I think one of the first things you need to think about, we're going to mandate this vaccine. Trust me, there are going to be people who are going to refuse it. What then? Are you ready to fire people? Are you ready to let people walk out the door and spend time, energy, and money finding, recruiting, training new people? Legal challenges. There are going to be lawsuits about this. Do you want to be the test case? I've said in the past, let the big boys handle that. Let the big employers fight that battle. My question is, my thought is, as a smaller employer, you don't want to spend time, energy, or money fighting that. I think a carrot approach makes a lot more sense. Educate your employees. A lot of great stuff on the CDC and DOH websites. Explain to them why the vaccine is important, why it's safe and effective, talk about cost, how it's probably not going to cost them anything. Make vaccination as easy as possible. Paid time off, you might have to do it now under FFCRA, we'll see. Vacation bonuses. Some employers have decided we're going to give you a bonus if you go out and get the vaccine. And then I created a little bit of a stir apparently last week when I suggested that maybe we were going to have two different classes of employees at some point. We're going to have those who have been vaccinated and those who have not. And maybe those who have not been vaccinated still wear masks while those who have been vaccinated is. I know a few of you raised real concerns about that suggestion. So I'm not saying that that's something you should be doing right now, but at some point, maybe the medical professionals will tell us we can. So you guys know, you've been listening to me for 10 months. You know that I will always say, let's listen to the medical professionals, and I am not. If the powers that be tell us that's an option, maybe it's something you look into, okay? And then another question that's come up a lot on Hotline, that I wanted to address, is what about asking employees if they've been vaccinated or getting proof of vaccination? So EEOC has said so far this is not prohibited under the Americans with Disabilities Act, okay? And the main reason is it's not a medical inquiry. We're not, if we simply ask the question, have you been vaccinated, show me proof of vaccination, we're not likely to elicit information about a disability. It's not a disability-related inquiry. So what becomes important then is that you don't ask the next question. When someone says, no, I've not been vaccinated, you start asking why. You might be eliciting information about underlying conditions or reasons that they can't get the vaccine. And then, so that's something you want to avoid, even though maybe the most obvious question of why is going to be, I can't find it, I don't have access to it. You don't want to ask the why question, but maybe as the employer, what you say is, well, if you want to get the vaccine and you haven't been able to get access to it, I have information for you about that. So I just think you want to think about, if you're going to start asking people for proof of vaccination, that you limit the way you ask the question and you don't attempt to elicit additional information. So I want to do a poll because I think a lot of our members are asking this question. So do you plan to make vaccines mandatory? Say yes, no, or we haven't decided yet. So Ben, if we could run that poll, I'd love to see the responses. Okay, so we've got 7% saying yes, 44% saying no, and 49% saying have decided yet. And I think that's not surprising. I think a lot of folks are still making a decision on that. For the vote, those of you who have decided to make the vaccine mandatory, we highly suggest that you have a written policy in place so that you can make sure that you're being consistent in your application. That is something we can certainly help you with if you're a member, we can help you with on Hotline or under member legal services. But thank you for responding to that. All right, I think I saw some questions coming through.
Yep, got a couple here. Let me try to run through these for you, Amy. Do you know whether under the proposal for the extension, if there's a deadline for when it will end at this point?
I did see that. I want to say it's May 31st. Biden wants to extend it beyond the March 31st that we've seen. So I think he's thinking May 31st with the idea that hopefully we'll have more vaccines in arms by then.
Someone asked, how do we see the tax credit? I believe you would talk to your payroll company about how to code in your payroll system for that. Agreed.
Yeah, people ask us the financial questions all the time. It's a little bit out of our realm. Definitely talk to your payroll people, talk to your financial and tax professionals.
Yeah, I mean, and I know they're going to code the payment a certain way so they can record and capture that. The employees currently out now due to COVID, and that employee is still not benefited eligible. Are we not subject to the regular FMLA? So the extension of FFCRA has not started yet. So that's
it hasn't started yet.
Retroactive or not? So
yeah, it's not going to be. It's not clear. I've read. I'm trying to read up a lot about this, and some folks have opined that maybe they're going to try to make it retroactive. I don't know how they do that as a practical matter, but
And I think this is all part of the 1.9 trillion stimulus. It's not going to happen the first day because it still has to get through both House and Senate.
So just one thing that, because I've gotten obviously questions about this on hotline about whether or not this would be retroactive. So what I've said to members who've opted not to extend FFCRA through the March 31st is at the very least keep a record of people who are going out for COVID related absences. So if it, just in case it is, who would be impacted by this. So.
And I didn't read the 6 you just put up, but someone asked, would this cover somebody that's quarantined due to travel, the requirements?
So we each have taken the position, and again, DOL has not given us a ton of guidance around this. But when the state is given an order that you must quarantine around travel, we have taken that to be a qualifying reason or FFCRA. When they were just guidelines or guidances, I took the position. I felt that's not enough. I know some lawyers felt differently. So I don't know if we'll get more clarity around that now. It would be great, wouldn't it? But I don't know if that's clear. Like I said, if it's an order, and Pennsylvania currently has an order in place, New Jersey currently has an order in place, we've been taking the position that yes, FFCRA applies. And I've seen a bunch of, I'm looking at the questions too, Kevin. I've seen a bunch of questions. Can you offer a bonus for getting the vaccine? We think yes. Based on everything I've read, I don't see any reason why you can't. My concern would be, how does that disproportionately impact people who can't get vaccinated because of some underlying health condition? But everything I'm reading suggests, giving a small bonus is not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I think most of the CDC guidance has a very narrow limit on what's an underlying condition that you can't get the vaccine. So again, I would think you'd have to, if someone says that, I would look at the CDC guidelines and see if it's within a covered, and in which case, small population, I would say you might have to give the bonus just to eliminate that as a risk. But
yeah. I mean, if you have somebody who has legit reasons why they can't get it, maybe you consider giving them the bonus anyway, especially like Kevin said, if we're talking about a relatively small amount of money to a relatively small number of people.
All right, I think that's it. I think we're covered most everything here.
Okay, great.
There's a medical question, which again, in terms of the, if you get the vaccine or you carry it, that's not a question we can answer. Although, as I said, join us next week. We will have someone from the Department of Health here, and maybe they can provide some guidance on that. We haven't secured it yet, but we're also trying to get somebody from the CDC for a future to talk more about the disease itself. So, we're doing everything we can to provide as much information to all of you as possible. So hopefully you're getting value out of these sessions, and hope you keep joining us. So with that, I think we will say goodbye for this week and look forward to seeing everybody next week. Take care.
All right. Have a great week, everybody.